Christina, how's it going?
Great. How are you, Chris? How are you, Rui?
Hello, I'm fine. Thank you.
Excellent. Excited to have everybody here today. We are going to be going deep into one of my favorite topics, and Christina, I know this is a personal favor of yours as well. Yes.
Oh yeah. I mean, Rui, hats off. I mean, I've absolutely loved all the work you guys have done. I'm so excited to dig into this, um, and talk about it further. Right? I am
Yeah.
so pumped.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead.
I want to say, I think before we kick off, Chris, I'm just gonna quick. We're already getting some questions in the queue, so just really quick, want to go through some of our rules on our chat. So first of all, preface any questions you have with a Q. Um, if you have that Q colon, that's going to help us see that it is a question we should queue up for Rui or for each other to discuss. The second one is going to be, please do not repeat any questions. Don't spam the chat. We will see it. We will get to it. Don't worry. We don't want to kick anyone out of this awesome conversation. So please respect the rules and we'll be good to go.
Awesome. And we have a question of the day. And I really like this one because I think it's very poignant. Christina, you want to hit it?
Yeah. Have you used CI integration with Power BI?
Yep. So if you
That
have, leave that in the comments. We want to know what is the understanding of people inside of the chat. So as we do craft this conversation with Rui, we've got good insights on where you're coming from. Okay. But before we do that, Rui, can you introduce yourself? We know who you are, but maybe not everyone knows who the great Rui is. So.
Yeah, sure. My name is Rui. I'm a product manager on the Power BI team, and I focus mostly on professional developer experiences with Power BI and within Fabric. But my focus goes to the Power BI workload. So I'm talking about things like source control, code formats, because those are also important, by having a proper format for source control and code development. And yes, I know that the current formats are not the best. We are changing that. We can talk a little bit about that. So basically, experiences that most of them, to be honest, they were already available before Power BI. And we kind of remove them, or we simplify them, and maybe that, maybe no. I do believe that what that was a good decision that made Power BI a success. And the idea and the focus on my team is to actually bring back those experiences using our tool. So you don't have to use an external tool just to get source control. That's something that is important and basic experience for any professional working within a team.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, we do like to do a background question to let people get to know you a little better. But Rui, can you explain the journey from 5-year-old Rui who wanted to be, I don't know, a teacher or a firefighter or a Goku? How did you go from 5-year-old Rui to a principal program manager at Microsoft, Rui? How did that happen?
Yeah. Actually, Goku is my child hero. I love Dragon Ball. I'm from the Dragon Ball generation, actually. I don't know. Let's start with. I always were passionate about computer science and computers. Since I remember myself, there was always a computer or something in the house. I did all my work life as consultant. Well, most of my work life as consultant, more than 15 years. I worked at a company called DevScope, where I went from a junior consultant to the BI and data manager, where I had an amazing team. It was an amazing experience. And then I got the opportunity, and I remember like 5 years ago thinking, hey, what could be the next step for me, what I could do, and my dream was always to work on the Power BI team, and even better, working on the Power BI team, focused on the features that I was really passionate about. The other day, a colleague sent me a picture for like 8 years ago, where I was doing a presentation that it was called Power BI Developers, and at the time, Power BI for developers, and at the time was using the REST APIs to deploy stuff, to embed, basically was telling the story of what was available for the developers at that time. So I was always very passionate about this area. And I joined the Power BI team, initially at the CAT team, where it was amazing. So working in a team of superstars, and just sharing, should just be able to work with them and work with the most strategic customers in the world. And then I got the opportunity to join, to be a feature PM, and especially on an area that I'm really passionate about. And this is where I am right now. I'm really happy to be able to drive these features and connect with customers, learn from them, and build features that can impact their lives, and especially from the developer persona.
That is fantastic, and I have to say, Rui, I owe a personal debt to you. My projects and a lot of the work that I've done over the last several years have been heavily based upon articles, documents, guides, or templates that you've created out there. So thank you very much for all your hard work. We really appreciate it. So
Thank you.
But with that, let's, before we dive in, we like to do a community sip. This is our lunch and learn. So grab your beverage of choice. And if you happen to have one, Rui, we forgot to prep you on this one. But we're going to be doing our sip, and we'll dive into it. All right? Let's go.
Let's go.
All right. Let's take a look. Let's see here.
And so I don't know if we want to do this in more like open Q&A and just starting with a few questions, or maybe I can start with a quick intro on what are the Power BI developer experiences, and what is Power BI developer mode, and Git integration, and maybe we can stop there and just open the floor, and yeah, if there are more questions on CICD, we can jump into that. If not, like the new formats, we can I don't know. Let's go with the flow. Sounds good?
Sounds like a plan, sir.
Okay, so basically, let's start with what is the Power BI developer mode? What is, let's say, the Power BI developer mode experience? So this is all about making Power BI desktop and our modeling tools to work with, instead of working with a binary file, to work with a folder representation, with files, with editable text. And because it's editable text, this can unblock things like source control. And we call the Power BI developer mode, but in reality, the first feature that we are shipping in this umbrella of developer mode is the Save as Power BI project that we shipped in June last year, that allows you to save as a PBIP. And this is what you see here on the right side. You get a folder with two folders in it: one folder for the semantic model, one folder for the report. By the way, we are changing the name. Soon it will be semantic model. So today it's still dataset. And this will unblock things like just Git. Because it's textual format, you can have a local Git repo. And I'm not even talking about co-development and Azure DevOps, just locally. This has an immense value because this will allow you to track, to backup, and to recover all your development. So this will allow you to, for example, I want to recover the version from last week. And this is the type of stuff that if you don't do, you will wish you have done it when you have a problem, right? And the only thing that you need to do is save as a PBIP, initialize a Git repo, and use a tool like VS Code to initialize that Git repo, and you're set. And then every change that you do, every time you open Power BI Desktop and you hit save, and you make changes, and you hit save, it will save those files to that folder, and it will be tracked by Git. So you can look at Git as like a database of files. And you can stop here. So if you want, if this is where you are, if you only care about backing up and having like a track of history of all your developments, you can stop here now. But you can make this a lot more interesting, especially if you work in a team and with multiple Power BI developers. And maybe today you are using OneDrive to share the work between them because it's a binary file. And that's, to be honest, to share a binary file, yes, OneDrive is probably the best tool out there. But that's not a good experience for co-development because you might overwrite each other work. So you need to use tools like Azure DevOps or GitHub, where you basically create a repo in one of those Git remotes like Azure DevOps, and you synchronize with a push and pull of your local Git repo to that Azure DevOps. And once you do that, now you can enable co-development. You can have multiple developers working on the same project, one of them working on the report, another working on the data set, maybe two developers working on the data set, and if there are no conflicts between them because they are constantly syncing to that Azure DevOps instance, no problem. If there is a conflict, so let's say two developers working on the same measure, they made a change to some change to the DAX code, then there is a conflict, and then it will be up to Git and Azure DevOps to solve that conflict. So you have a tool that will help you whenever there's a conflict to solve that. And of course, the final part, and I see this as a circle that goes in two directions. You can publish and you can connect that Azure DevOps repo. At the moment, only Azure DevOps. So you can use GitHub for co-development, that's fine. But if you want to automatically publish to Fabric, you need to use Azure DevOps today. And yes, GitHub will come in the future.
Okay.
So, but today with DevOps, you connect the workspace to one of those Git repos in Azure DevOps, and you have a bidirectional synchronization. So, and by bidirectional, it means that everything that you have in the repo will be synchronized to the workspace. But if you make changes in the workspace, those will also be synchronized to the Azure to DevOps. And you can go back. You can do the inverse cycle. So you can make a change in the workspace, like create a report, or make a change in the semantic model using web modeling, and commit that change to Azure DevOps, and then locally in desktop pull those changes and open them back in desktop. So this means that you can, and we want to make this experience better and better to the future. You can work in the desktop tool, or you can work in the service. You can work on both. So maybe today you are not in your laptop, and you need to quickly do create a new measure. You can do that in web modeling. You do a commit, so you have the metadata source of truth, and tomorrow you continue that work in desktop. And I think that's amazing, because not only allows the developers and the users to work where they are more comfortable with, and I used to say that it's no longer, whenever you have a Git integration, it's no longer a bad practice to do changes in the service, because in the end, everything will be synchronized to the Azure DevOps. So that's why this has like the two arrows between them. So one more time, what we'll allow you to do is just save as a Power BI project, and that's it. Maybe in the future we might have a developer ribbon, something more fancy, but right now is just the save as type. And when you save that, it's just a new option that you see in the save as. You also need to enable, this is still in public preview, so you need to enable a preview feature. You get this folder with all those files, and we can get in details about what is on those files, but there are documentation for that, so I can share the links to the slides in the end. But if you search for Power BI developer mode or Power BI project, you'll get to the documentation, and there are an explanation of what each file means. But the most important files are the model.bim, and this is today, which is a themesol that represents the semantic model, so all the tables, all the measures, everything about your semantic model. and the other one is the report.json that holds the definition of the entire report, like all the pages, all the visuals, and it's a single JSON file that I know it's not the best format for source control, and we are actively working on that, and we should have some news really soon. And the same thing for the semantic model, that we are going to switch to Tyndall, the tabular model definition language, that it's a much more readable and editable file format that will make the source control and co-development experience a lot better.
Donald Parrish is commenting how much he loves PBIP and is looking forward to Tyndall. Do you have a date where we could be expecting that? Is that something that we could see soon?
Okay, yeah. I don't wanna commit to dates and then have this on record, but let me say it's really soon. Okay. It's not that soon. It's really soon.
Okay.
Yeah, there might be some regressions that will want, maybe instead of being really soon, it will be just really soon. But you will see that.
To be clear, we want it working, and if you find errors,
exactly,
don't roll it out like until it's all good, right? Like happy to wait a month, or whatever.
Exactly.
So that is fine.
Exactly.
Half-baked is only good as an ice cream flavor, Brian. It's not something we want in our code.
Yes. And Daniel Odeker says he likes how Rui's BIM file uses a tabular editor icon. So that is fantastic. We should definitely do that.
Yeah, it's the only tool that lets me open the BIM file directly, right? So
yeah, if you're not using tabular editor, you should be using tabular editor. And I've done live streams on it. I've done videos on it. Daniel, we'll have to have you on again to do it again, because more knowledge has to be spread about the glories of tabular editor. It's I was surprised. I did a survey of how many people were using tabular editor. Like over 90% didn't know what it was. So we got to do more education there. But we've got another question in the queue, but I've got one for you. So one of the big things I'm frequently tasked with is I'm constantly like asking people like, hey, there's something that needs to be done and rolled out today. Is this something that you could get through? Yeah, we'll get it done by the end of the day. And if I'm using DevOps, and I've got that, I've got everyone using DevOps, can I then see all as they start to commit changes and stuff inside the DevOps log and Git log, so I could actually track that this work is being done and I don't have to like babysit my developers? Is that something I can do?
I'm sorry. I think I'm having some network issues. So
are you okay? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
So yeah, you were saying that you want to track the history in DevOps. So that was the last part I heard.
Yep. Yeah. Can I see if I'm a lead and I say, okay, or let's reverse it. Let's say Christina comes and says to Chris, yep. The lackadaisical Chris, who's always overcommitting and under-delivering. Christina says, Chris, can you please deliver on this by end of day? And I say, of course I will, Christina. I'd be happy to. Can Christina watch my commits inside of DevOps and like actually track the changes to know that Chris is not working on it and is not going to deliver by the end of the day, to say like, hey, this is not in place? Is that something we could do?
So, and I'm not sure if I completely understood the question, but the thing is, as soon as you have Git and you have Azure DevOps, which also has a Git repo inside of it, you can every change that you do, you can track those changes, right? So you can so every change that you do, it's a commit, and you can track those commits. Though that does not mean that you can track the work that the developer is doing right now, because Git is a local offline repository that it gets synced to Azure DevOps or GitHub. Now, another thing that is very interesting, and we can talk about that, is the part of the pull requests, where I do my work and then I do a pull request. And let's say you commit that, and the pull request could be, let's say, a new report. So you create a feature branch, and normally the flow is like this: you create a feature branch where you name it, okay, new report. You work on that new report. You make all your changes. You can do that. Those you can make that development either in the service or in desktop. And when you are done, you want to push that new report into the final environment. So let's say production, but you are still working on your isolated branch. And talking about branches, let's go here. So I'm talking about something like this. You have the main branch where, let's say, you have one report here, and then you want to create a new one. So you create a feature branch, you do all your work, and then you commit. You wanna commit those changes into the main branch, so everyone can have access to it. And to do the way to do that is through a pull request. And you issue that pull request, and the pull request might run or trigger a bunch of validations, like tests on your development, and it can even have an approval workflow. Like, say, Christina gets a notification saying, "Hey, Chris did this work. Do you want to review it? Maybe ask." Review the code, or maybe just review if the continuous integration build rules have failed, or were successful. And if everything is okay, then Christina approves that pull request, and the approval of that pull request will make the code to be merged into the main branch. That could mean triggering another pipeline that will deploy into production, or it could mean because the main branch is connected to Fabric Kit, that the new feature will be automatically synchronized into the workspace. I don't know if this is what you were looking for as a way to track things, but that's
exactly what I was talking about. So
okay.
Yes. So Christina has told me it's my job, so I have to go create a feature branch, because that's our process flow, and then I have to do my work, and then I have to deploy my work. If Christina hasn't seen that I haven't done it, then she knows that Chris is slacking as normal. So
and then I can go and be
sense.
like, Chris, you need to seek approval for these things.
Yeah.
Now with that, Rui, you mentioned like an automatic syncing to the Fabric workspaces. Is that something new that's happening? Because I know right now you have to click a button in the workspace. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's so right now you're right. So it's you need to go into the workspace and manually click a button. But also very soon there will be APIs that you can call to force that sync. And with those APIs, you can call them, and basically through Azure DevOps, you call the API that whenever the code is synchronized into is committed into main, you can call the API that will force the synchronization into the workspace.
Oh, that's going to be awesome. And I'm assuming the vice versa is also going to happen, where if changes are made in the workspace, we could call an API to have it sync back to Git.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you have it's supposed you'll get two sets of APIs, one for the commits and the pull, and the other for the push as well.
Awesome.
Okay. And today we have to go into the service and hit sync. Is that how that works?
One button.
Yeah, one button.
But I'm sure, Rui, you've probably heard this a lot, but I mean, customers have thousands of workspaces, right? So that one button click 1,000 times can be pretty painful. So we appreciate all you're doing to make that.
And actually that's outside of my team, because the thing to understand about Fabric Kit integration, and yes, today it's mostly Power BI content that you see there. I believe that it's also notebooks, it's in lakehouses, although the lakehouses are limited. It's just the shell of the lakehouse, not actually the tables. But the Fabric Kit integration is not only for Power BI, it's actually a platform feature that every workload that exists today in Fabric should or will integrate with the Fabric Kit integration.
Awesome.
So it's not just just for Power BI, although most of the items today are for Power BI. Are Power BI items, actually.
We're just, we're just selfish, Rui. We just want everything for Power BI for ourselves, What can we
Me
say?
too, me too. I fight for that.
Well, Cody's got a great question here about thin reports. Does it make sense for a thin report to be as a PBIP? It doesn't appear to have a folder or data set, which makes sense. But also, it doesn't have a get ignore. What's the best practices when it comes to thin reports in Power BI?
And for our viewers who might not know, real quick, just a thin report is going to be something that the main data set lives in the Power BI service, and you're connecting to that from another Power BI report. So sorry about that.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So so today, when you save, so you open Power BI desktop and you live connect to an existing data set. You have a thin report, right? So you don't have a data set in there. If you save that as a PBIP, you will only see the report folder because there is no semantic model. And the difference will be that there is a special file, actually a very important file. Let me go there. Sorry, I do have this is like my deck where all everything around the developer mode. So I'm always jumping. So this
One
file,
deck to rule them all.
This file is really, really important because this file not only is an entry point into Power BI desktop, because by the way, when you save as a PBIP, you get one folder for the dataset, one folder for the report. But that does not mean that you cannot have more reports and more datasets in the same folder. You can, because what we actually want to we want to have the same mental model that you have in the service, where you can have in one workspace, you can have multiple datasets and multiple reports. But when you save from a PBIX, you only have one, and we generate that sales PBIP. That, by the way, is probably the least important file of the whole thing. The reason why it exists, it's because we save to a folder, and you need to have in that folder an entry point to Power BI desktop again to reopen that PBIP. So if you look into the PBIP content, you will see that it points to the report folder. Now, another way to open a report, a PBIP report, a PBIP format to open in desktop is, instead of opening the PBIP, you can open the PBIR. So the PBIR is also an entry point into Power BI desktop. That, by the way, if you connect a Fabric workspace to Git, and then you clone that Git, you will notice that you don't have any PBIP. Why? It's because let's imagine that you have 10 reports and 5 data sets in that workspace. Then you would get 5 or I don't know, you will get multiple PBIP files. That would be a mess. So to open back the report in desktop, you should open the PBIR file. And another very important attribute of the PBIR is that it holds the connection to the semantic model, to the dataset. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm always mixing dataset and semantic model. I'm also training myself to try to use a semantic model as much as I can. So
we're trying the same thing, Rui. It is a task.
Many years.
Yeah.
And actually, it's curious because before Power BI, it was semantic model, the multidimensional thing. It was a model. It was never a data set. And then in Power BI, we start calling it, we train ourselves to call it data sets. And now we are, and I think it was a very good decision, renaming to semantic model, because that's what it is. Now, the definition of PBIR holds the reference to the data set, and it has 2 types of references. It can be a bypath reference. That's the default. So whenever you have the data set and the report in the same workspace, it will always be a bypath. So in here, you can see that this report is referencing the data set folder in the same location, or it can be a by connection. So if you save a PBIX, that is a live connect report as a PBIP, you will get a by connection. So this is also a good way. If you don't know how to create that by connection, you can just save it as a PBIP, and you will see the by connection created for you. And you will notice that the big by connection is basically just a connection string, right? It's a connection string to the, and using the XMLA connection string to the workspace. Another thing important to mention here is that by default, every report, when you save as a PBIP, we can say that it's a thin report because it's disconnected, right? Even on the bypath, if you look into the bypath, this report can live without the data set, or it can even point to another data set that can be on the same folder. This is just a reference. We actually, when you save as a PBIP, I can say that it's already disconnected from the data set. It holds a reference, not the same thing with the PBIX, because in the PBIX, everything is in that file. So you cannot, if you want to switch to a live connect, you actually need to. Today, you don't have any UI feature to do that. You need to, let's say, delete all the queries and then connect to the data set. With the PBIP, if you want to switch between a live connect, let's say an import or a local data set, you just need to switch the file. So I even see some customers doing things like, let's say they don't want to refresh the data set locally, and they have everything in the same workspace. So you can, so during your development, you temporarily switch to a live connect. So you go to the definition PBIR and you put the by connection there. You do all your work because you don't want to refresh your data set locally. And then just before the commit, you put back the bypath, and everything will be fine. So what I'm saying is, just by changing this file, you can switch the behavior of the report. If it's a connected report connecting to a data set in a service, or if it is connecting to or if it will load the data set locally and even allow you to edit that data set if you want.
Oh, that would save so much development time, not having to refresh the report locally, especially if you've got huge models.
Yeah.
And you're not doing any model changes, you're just doing visuals. Wow.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
I was
I'm taking notes on the side here. So
yeah. Like clip this one on YouTube, come back to it. Because and I guess this is where we could make a hot swap, because I've had problems with people who are pointing to analysis services, then they want to point to a data set. Like that could be problematic because you got to drop the analysis services, then put, like you'd have to scrape it out. But this would be just a change in that URL in the PBIR file, right, Rui?
Yes, although the current experience today, the connection to, if you want to connect to Azure analysis services or local analysis services, is exactly as you said. So you go to the connection string and you change the connection string to point to the analysis services. But we want to change that behavior. And we want to change that behavior because we want to have, one more time, the same mental model that you have in the service. And in the service, if you have a Power BI report that is connected to analysis services, you notice that it creates a semantic model for you, we call it a stub data set. And we do that because that it can have some gateway connections, or it can have different credentials, all of that. Now, what we want to do, and what we will do on the PBIP, is if you have a PBIP connected to analysis services, you will see that it will create a dataset folder the same way that it does in the service, but that dataset folder is just a connection string. You can go there and you change the connection string there, but it will still be a bypath reference in the report. Okay.
Okay.
And the idea is to make it simple, at least on the conceptual and the mental model, that okay, it's the same thing in the service. So if you look into a folder that you clone after the Git integration and you clone that repo, the folders that you see should map to the items that you have in the workspace. Okay.
Okay. I think that makes good sense. Before we go on to my next question, and I have a more difficult one for you, Rui, and so I'll prep you In fact, I'm going to prep you with my question, but then we're going to ask. No, we're not going to do that. That'll screw it. That'll be too hard. Let's just start with Power Egg wants to know, is PBIT going to become obsolete? If so, or no.
Yeah, that's a good question. Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
One thing I don't know I don't know if I mentioned that in the beginning. So my focus is on the developer experience. That's where as a PM I'm fighting for the persona that is a developer. But we have other personas, and to be honest, those other personas, I believe that they are what made us so successful, right? So we cannot, and if you think, let's say a business analyst that is coming for Power BI for the first time, working on the PBIX and on the PBIT is much more accessible to them. And it makes a lot more sense than working in the folder. So let's say, for example, I want to share, I'm a business analyst and I want to share my work with you. It's much easier. It's just one file. I can put it in OneDrive and send you the link, other than save a PBIP, even zipping that PBIP and sending it over to you, and you need to unpack it and extract it. So it doesn't make any sense. So the PBIX and the PBIT, it will never go away. It will be the default format and the most popular format in the Power BI development. The PBIP is an alternative whenever, let's say, you are in a stage where, even for a professional working with a PBIX, maybe if you want to do something simple and I want to share that analysis with other developer, maybe that does not make any sense to save as a PBIP. Now, the point where it makes a lot of sense to think on the PBIP is, I'm working on a team. Definitely, the PBIP will be much better. This is a corporate report or a very important report and data set, and I'm going to have multiple iterations of development. Definitely, the PBIP makes a lot of sense, because I can just have that tracking history that I was just talking. I talked in the beginning. I can easily roll back into previous versions, and that's a huge advantage. Of course, that this also means that going into the PBIP world, you need to learn. You need to be comfortable with things like Git. You need to understand what Git is. You need to understand how to work with Git. And taking a step further, you need to understand like Git remotes, like a pull, a push. You need to understand things like branching. And on branching, I would say that, especially if you are, the most important thing is, there are many. First of all, you need to understand what is a branch, right? Like a branch is an isolated branch of development. But there are many strategies out there. These are 4, or maybe the most popular, the top 4 strategies. And it's difficult. Sometimes I get this question: oh, what's the branching strategy I should use? And it depends. It depends, because it depends on the team, on the maturity of that team. It depends on what the organization is using, maybe for other projects. So you should choose one, and maybe if you are starting, you should choose the simplest one. Maybe that the trunk-based development, where you only have one branch, and later on evolve into something like feature branching, where you have every time you work on a feature, you create an isolated branch, and you work on that feature branch, and then you commit into main. And as you start to evolve, maybe your projects start to become more complex. You bring more people to the team. You might think on things like the Microsoft release flow or the Git flow, where you have things like release branches and feature branches and pipelines that trigger whenever you create those branches. I can do a demo of something like that. But the thing is, especially if you are starting, maybe you should just start with Git and just maybe not even have a branch. Just do commits and have the tracking history. And as you start to evolve and you start to learn the basics, then evolve to things like, okay, I need to learn about branching, and I need to learn how to use that and apply that strategy within my team. Now, what I can tell you, and I can promise everyone, it pays off. Okay, it's one of those things that it really saves a ton of time. It gives you much more reliability into your developments. And one thing that I'm actually very passionate about is the quality testing. There is a tutorial. I can share the link, but there is a tutorial that is on the Power BI project documentation. Let me show it really quick. Here it is. So, and this tutorial, you can follow it. It's a step-by-step tutorial. And the thing is, and believe me, this is something that can save like a ton of work, a ton of time, especially on the most expensive members on the team, the senior people. Just doing validations, even for the senior people on every development that you do, and running validations like, okay, are you following the naming convention? Are you creating the measures with the right standards? Does your measure has a format string? Do you have a column that is hidden? It's not used anywhere, but it's still in the model, and it's just there spending. Maybe it's a column that is consuming 20-30% of the memory. So you can have those types of rules. And whenever there is a development, and whenever there is the will, or after I finish my development, I want to publish that to the main branch, I create that pull request I was talking about, and the pull request will start a build pipeline that will run validation rules over the semantic model and the report. And by the way, it's using two open source tools, the Tablet Editor, that runs the BPA rules from Michael Kowalski from the CAT team. And it does exactly the same thing for the report that will run it's another tool called PBI Inspector that has also a standard set of rules that runs over the report and does things like if you have a theme, this is my favorite rule, by the way. You have a theme in your report, but you are using static colors. Maybe the developer did not know and put some static colors. That should break the build, and the developer will get a meaningful error in the end saying, oh, you cannot publish to main because it failed on rule 1, 2, and 3. And the developer, maybe even if it is a junior developer, can understand what's going on and fix the code by itself, and save precious hours from the team lead or the senior developers to validate and even teach that junior developer. So this can save hundreds of hours, to be honest.
Well, and having that in your development process, so even like catching it going from dev to UAT means it fails right there. So, right at the lowest cost opportunity, you can get those checks and tests in place.
Exactly.
Nice.
That was the question I was going to prep you for. So really, you are
exactly. And for example, on that, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Yep. We can hear you.
Exactly on that, the scenario I was talking about of the column that is hidden, and it's just there because the developer thought that, oh, I might need that later. That's a very bad principle, because once that thing hits into production, then you are not sure if anyone that is consuming that data set actually is using that column, and then removing that column is a breaking change. So if you can detect, and even if it's just put some thought into it, hey, do I really need that column? No, I don't need that column. Let's just remove it. If I need that column, I will add the column later. And the beauty of this is all those rules and these amazing tools, they are extensible, so you can build your own rules. For example, when I was in consulting, I put a lot of effort within my team to implement what we called like the quality bar for any development that DevScope did. We put a lot of effort in those rules, and because we knew that when we hire someone new or someone from another team came to the project, instantly they will get some quality bar standards, because the rules will fail. They cannot push into production. Of course, there are exceptions sometimes, and on the pull request, you can even go there and say, okay, I'm okay with this. Let's go further. But as you say, you detect those things early on before they reach into production, and you can define a quality bar into all your developments, and also consistency, right? So like naming convention, so you can make sure that all your semantic models have the naming convention that you want them to have, or your customer wants to have. So, for example, maybe the customer wants everything in lowercase. No, with this, nothing will pass if it's not lowercase. It will fail on the build.
It's just so beautiful.
And the thing that we did with the PBIP, by the way, this was always everything was already available 2 years ago or 3 years ago. This is nothing new. The thing that we made it possible with the PBIP is just more accessible, because now you don't need to unpack the PBIX, or you don't need to connect to the the Tableau editor can connect to the model BIM file and run the rules, and the same thing for the PBI inspector. So we just make it more accessible and easier than ever to run this type of stuff. And if you look into the tutorial, you will see that is basically the only thing that you need to do is copy a YAML code, put it on your repo, and that's it. All your every time, the next time you do a commit or a pull request, that those rules will run, and they will validate your developments.
That's just awesome. Now, now that we have our PBIP files unpacked and we have access to that, and can our data engineering team members put in, or do you have sample code or examples of data engineering teams validating that the changes they're making don't create breaking changes for reports, or if they are breaking changes, that we create a separate pipe to get new PBIP files that have those modifications in them?
So
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see where you're going. Let's say if everything is in Git or in DevOps, then you have access to all the metadata. So you can say that, okay, if I'm changing this column or if I'm changing this measure, you can find that measure and that column or that table in all the reports, and also make sure that the reports will get updated. Now, the problem is when you have reports and Excel workbooks, for example, using pivot tables that are referencing those columns and those measures, and for that situation, this is not something that the metadata will solve. It can make it easier for you to detect those dependencies, and we can even do some like a VS Code extension if you open all those folders and detect that for you, but it will still be a problem in the service. And the solution for that problem is things like Purview that will detect, that will scan, and it will give you the impact if you change a specific column on the semantic model, what type of impact it will have on all the reports.
Wow.
All right, fair enough. I'm just looking to automate, because it's great when if Fabric is getting us to the point where everyone can wear every hat, but in some organizations, there's a separation of duties, right? And those data engineers come in and they've got a job to do. They get the request and they get it done. It'd be fantastic if we had, and I would imagine we could now build out a deployment pipeline tests, regression tests to make sure that there's no breaking changes. Just not something there.
No, yeah, that's for sure. And you also have another new weapon that we can talk about, which is the APIs. Something that it's not broadly talked about, but they are available. And one of those APIs is, let me move to that slide.
Not a problem. Good product managers or program managers and architects always have slides at their disposal that they can quickly throw up to talk about each item.
So one of the APIs is called the Get Item Definition API. And the Get Item Definition API lets you, and it's the first time that we shipped this API in December. And we never had an API like this before, because you had an API, the export API, and the export API exported the PBIX. And sometimes that export API didn't even work because the data set was modified with XMLA, and then the download does not work. This is different, because this API lets you connect to a report and get the definition, and only the definition of the report. And guess what? What's that definition? The definition is using the PBIP format. So with this API, you can also do some, let's say, for the reports in the service. In theory, if you want to understand the impact of a change on a semantic model, or a new column, or a rename on a column, and you want to detect the impact on all the reports, you can first detect the impact on the reports that you have in the source code. So because you already have the definition, and that could be done by a tool, or it could be done by a find and replace. So you open the entire folder in VS Code and just search for that column, and and you can even change that, because another thing that we allow you to do in the PBIP is making changes to the metadata and then let you open it back in desktop. Now, the Get Item Definition also allows you to do that in the service, because you can get the definition of the reports that exist in the service. So you could, in theory, loop all the workspaces that you have access to, and get the definition of the reports, and understand if they are connecting to the data set that you are changing. Second, if they are using any column or any measure that you are also changing.
Wow. So now it is possible. A little bit of effort along it, but it's something that could be done. But
I'll
that's
take
good
possible,
for like
Chris, any
catalogs.
day.
Yeah. Yep. There was a question we had. Oh, where did it go? Data flows. Where is there any plan about including data flows as supported items for Git integration? Dun, dun, dun.
So I would say definitely. I don't know the timelines for that. One more time, the Fabric Git integration, the goal is any workload, any item that you have in the workspace should have a Git representation, and it should be exportable to Git and imported from Git. Now, I'm not aware about the timelines on the Dataflow team to bring that compatibility into Fabric Git integration. But yeah, one more time, the goal is every item to be able to be exported to Git.
We'll say by June, and then we'll be wrong by either
I don't know,
too fast or too late.
Chris, we can't do that.
I don't work for Microsoft, so I can say things like that.
You can say next month. It's
yeah. Sure.
Tomorrow.
Sure, I'll be there by next month. Yeah. We're not making any commitments here.
What I can tell you is, if it's not there, there is a plan. Now it's a matter of priority, and each workload team, because there are within Fabric, you have multiple teams. You have the Power BI team, you have the data integration team, and it's also important to get that feedback, and also for each team to consider that and prioritize it versus other amazing new stuff that they are building. But the goal in the end is every single workload should have that Git integration.
Yay! Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I just saw a video this morning, or it was a little YouTube short, and I absolutely loved it. They were describing something called the Michelangelo effect. Do you know what that is? Have you heard of that?
I heard of that, but I don't recall.
Okay, so Michelangelo, famous sculptor, would look at a block of marble, and he would chip away at it to unlock the masterpiece that was within. And the Michelangelo effect applies to how couples will see the masterpiece that's within the other person and will gladly work on the other person and take improvement tips from the other person to become that masterpiece that that is within them. And that's how great couples become great couples.
That's so sweet. I love that.
I think there is a lot of the Michelangelo effect going on with Power BI, because we are talking with people who love the tools and love the piece of marble that we're working with, which is our data ecosystem, and we're just carving away at it together, like unlocking the masterpiece that's within it. So Rui, thank you so much for coming here and unlocking how you are chipping away at that masterpiece that is DevOps and CICD within Microsoft Fabric. So before we end, is there anything you would like the people who are watching this live stream to do when it comes to the work that you're doing? How can we help you?
So just keep the feedback coming. So every time you have something that it's missing in the product, please log it in the Fabric ideas, promote it, broadcast it, get the votes. It's something it's really important for us as BMs to understand, okay, what is missing, what is more priority, and to set the right priorities. So for example, I can tell you that we shipped BBIP in June, and until then there was a lot of bug fixes, but there is nothing major. So the next big thing is the Tyndall, and the next big thing after that is the report, the new report format. Why? It's because that was the main dissatisfaction factor that we found from customers saying, hey, but it's still one file. If I'm working with multiple developers, I cannot work. And the same thing for the report. Hey, I cannot even, if I have two developers working on the same report, I cannot do merge. I need to choose between one and the other. And that's what we are prioritizing all and putting all the investment on the team that is working on the PBIP. A lot other things could happen, like let's say the Git window. Something that some customers are asking, like, okay, I want to be able just in desktop to commit and view the history, but maybe, yeah, you do have a workaround for that, and that's using VS Code or whatever other Git tool. And there are other features that maybe should be prioritized before that. So the Fabric ideas is something that we look all the time to understand and balance those priorities. So please always do that, and yeah, whenever, and feel free to share them with me and LinkedIn. Just tag me. I will follow. I'll follow up for sure.
Awesome.
Well, Rui, Christina, thank you both so very much for joining us today and sharing insights on CICD. That's something that we just need more and more people to be aware of and exposed to the amazing things we can do. If you're at all interested in learning Python with Microsoft Fabric, on Friday at 7:30, Susan Bays is going to be on our live stream. We're going to be talking about learning Python with Microsoft Fabric. So that should be a good one.
Yeah, love Sue.
Awesome.
She's awesome. So
That's
definitely tune in, guys. I like her almost as much as you, Rui. No, I'm just kidding. No, but thank you again for coming on. This has been awesome.
It was awesome. Always glad to talk and chat about this stuff. And thank you for having me.
Awesome.
See you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.